Chairman Mao, Jamie Howe, Ho Chi Minh, Asif Din, Václav Havel, Graham Saville, No Surrender, Percy Fender, Guerrilla Crickets.
Hello and a warm welcome back to our gorgeous Guerrilla Alpine Lodge. I'm Tony Bishop 1 and I'm huddling around the Yule fire with the two big cheeses, the Grand Fromages, the Capo de Tutti Capos themselves of Guerrilla Cricket. Roused from winter hibernation, the bear.
Yeah, looking rather fat.
Wait till after Christmas, mate.
Yeah, and of course, Guerrilla Hendo.
Looking equally fat, I would say. But it's great to be here with you all in this Yuletide extravaganza.
Oh, indeed.
Indeed. And, well, Hendo, you're up first for your highlights. And yours, I think, takes us back to Malahide and some comedy capers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a little bit self-indulgent because it's my first commentary on the game that we did live, the Ireland-Pakistan test match, the inaugural test for Ireland. But after a sort of day of waiting through the rain and wibbling a lot, we finally got action on the second morning. And we couldn't really have expected such a dramatic opening to the game. It was astonishing, and from a commentator's perspective, it was great. It wasn't a sort of letdown. It wasn't an anticlimax. There was so much in that one ball to enjoy and appreciate. It was just a marvellous moment.
Something of a family tradition, wasn't it? Featuring an Al-Haq.
Indeed, the Al-Haqs, they're well renowned, I suppose. Well, certainly Uncle Al-Haq. Inzamam, of course, has regularly kept us interested between the wickets. But this was his nephew Imam making his test debut, and he got into all sorts of trouble when they thought there was going to be a run on the first ball, and it was very gratifying.
And for that first ball of our live broadcast, if you could have chosen between that or the middle stump cartwheeling backwards on ball one, you'd have still picked the moment that actually happened, would you?
Yeah, I think so, because it would obviously been great for someone like Tim Mercer to rip out the middle stump on with Ireland's first ball in Test cricket. But in terms of what happened, I mean, once you've seen the middle stump ripped out, there's not much more to describe, is there? But there was just so much going on with this particular run. I mean, it was never-ending. Physios, umpires, everyone seemed to be involved.
Well, to misquote a football manager, you can only commentate on what's in front of you.
It's very true. And there was a lot going on in front of me.
And you did it quite magnificently. Here it is.
It's Tim Mercer, he blows it fast. It's Tim Mercer, and finally he gets to play a test at last.
He does indeed, and he's going to be bowling to, this man for Pakistan. We'll just hang on with his jingle, because just in case the first ball comes, we don't want it to come in the middle of the jingle. We've got three slips in the gully, a man at wideish mid-off, backward point, quite deep, mid-wicket and mid-on, and a man down at long leg. That is the field for the first ball in Irish Test cricket history. Mercer stretches, indeed, at the end of his run, and Azhar Ali just walks down the pitch, gives it a little bit of a prod. Very experienced batsman, and one of the best in the world, I would say. As Mercer is about to bowl, everyone is absolutely silent. Here he comes in past the umpire, bowls a rather loopy full ball. They're going to get a run though, and they have to hurry. And an enormous collision between wicketkeeper Imam Ul-Haq running to the danger end, and he's gone down without receiving a ball. He's absolutely poleaxed. What drama at the beginning of this first test in Ireland. I do hope he's going to get up again, but immediately the physio is racing on. The umpires are coming in, or certainly one of them is. Is he going to be, curiously, out of the test before he's faced a ball on debut? Yeah, that would have been absolutely incredible, wouldn't it? It was just a classic moment, really. I think, I mean, when we get back to question of sport in the year 2145,
what happened next?
What happened next? Obviously, I mean, okay, audio probably, but nevertheless, I think that'd be quite fun.
It was a joyous moment.
It was somewhere on the red button.
Somewhere on the red button, yes, absolutely, absolutely true.
It can be found. Well, your second moment of choice is also has an element of comedy, I think. Takes us back to Lords and a 12th man in a rather strange cable knit cardigan. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, that was the game that we also did live right at the end of May. We inveigled our way into the BBC TMS box to commentate on the hurricane relief match for the Caribbean, the West Indies against the rest of the world. And Sky were also covering this, and what was great fun about it, I thought, people will say it was a gimmick, but to me it was one of the funniest things I've seen on a cricket field. It was the becardiganed Nasser Hussain reporting from first slip, and then deep backward square leg, and then mid-wicket, and then backward point. It was phenomenal. It was just hilarious. And the fact of the matter is that, in a way, Nasser made it funny because he did it completely deadpan. I mean, if he'd been joking about it, you'd have understood, and you could have forgiven him for doing it. But he did it. He stuck to his task. It was almost as if you said, well, I know you've given me this bloody awful thing to do, but I'm going to see it through. A kind of determination you expected from someone like Nasser, who's been captain of England.
Well, I think at some point we rather thought the rest of the world team has summoned up the ghost of Valdoonican, because it really was, I recall, it was a very chunky knit sort of jumper that he was wearing.
It's just unfortunate they didn't take the rocking chair out there, really, wasn't it? I mean, that would have absolutely made it perfect.
Paddy McGinty's goat.
Indeed, absolutely.
Anyway, once again, here is how that was described.
We appear to have Nasser Hussain in a cardigan fielding at backstop.
Yes, that's curious, isn't it? What is he doing there? He's going to be filming and playing while in a cardigan.
At half a slip.
At half a slip. Has he got Sam Billings next to him?
If the ball hits Nasser, is it 5 runs?
Oh, it's a good question. It'd be more than he generally scored at Lords. Oh, no, there was that three-fingered salute, wasn't there?
He ran out Andrew Strauss.
Can you give us a three-fingered salute if you're out there? We're up here in the box.
It was an extraordinary moment on, again, another extraordinary Guerrilla Day. I certainly recall that.
Yeah, Guerrilla Day. That was a great day.
I remember the amount of work that went into making sure everything was ready for ball one, and it was.
It was indeed. There's a lot of appearances of Crack the Bear that day, I believe.
There were. It's immortalised.
Underneath that bloody desk trying to get stuff plugged in, yeah.
Well, no Guerrilla broadcast is complete without the appearance of the Crack the Bear.
No, you've got to have somewhere to park your bike.
Indeed so.
Well, Bear, anyway, and as we've come on to you, I think your first moment of choice involved an angry redhead and a call for captain. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, it was the Test series, India versus India in England versus us, and the first test was getting down to the wire again, and we called it before, and we all thought it was going to be a really close Test series. Cody had never thrown anything in England before, and then he got that massive innings in the first innings, and we only got him out for a run out, and he was getting on in the second innings, and it just didn't look like we were ever going to get him out, and it was really big trouble, and they were closing in. It was a tight game, and there wasn't a lot of runs in it, and they were kind of him and was it Pant were going along, and
Pandya, wasn't it?
Pandya, that's it, and. It looked like they might just get there. And you just thought, if we can get Kohli out, this is A, it's a good thing for the series. B, it's a good thing for England to prove that they can get him out after, last time he was a bunny to Anderson. And so it's a really big moment. And Stokes came in, he got thrown the ball. They were 60, 70 runs short. He just got his 50, and then he bowled an absolute peach of an in-swinger. And it hits on the counter, and you'll hear, I went totally mental. And I was so happy. And it was the one thing you thought, this series is really alive now. And it proved to be an amazing series. And it could have swung the other way. I mean, we won that 3-1. 4-1 in the end, wasn't it? Yeah.
4-1 out of a proper 5-test series.
Yeah, exactly. But it could have quite easily switched around in a couple of texts. It was a very close. Things went on.
Well, you're absolutely right. It was a terrific wicket and heightened by the importance of the moment.
Indeed.
Here it was.
Stokes in full. Huge There's no way they're not going to review this. There is no way Virat Kohli won't review this, but I think that's plum. Unless Kohli's managed to get himself outside of the line.
No way.
He walked across outside off stump to try and work it into the leg side. It was the in-swinger from Ben Stokes. Kohli very rarely overbalances with those, but he did on that occasion. He's been struck low on the front pad. He has reviewed it because, of course, he has. But I think Ben Stokes has got Virat Kohli.
Oh, please,
It's certainly not a no ball. The foot is splitting the line. Well, the line is splitting the foot. It angles in, in.
Oh, no, that's plum. Mate, that is so
It looks
plum.
as though this has hit him on just on off stump, and it's certainly not hit it. Kohli was too early on the shot, overbalanced. It was a beautiful in-swing. It was very well bowled by Stokes.
That's got to be out. Please be out. Please be out. Please be out.
It's hit him on middle.
Oh, it's out.
It's crashing into leg.
Get in!
So
There you have it.
Very happy.
The totally balanced commentary of the bear.
I was about to say you have the intelligent, articulate analysis of Nakal and get the fuck in the background of the bear.
I think I'd
The
probably had a
roar.
couple of beers by then.
I
It
think
was
might have
getting
done.
really tense. It was getting really tense. You know, you could see these two going through, and it wasn't a lot of runs off. And you know, all these things in those sorts of run chases, it's the innings that almost gets there. It may be a tail ender who gets you over, but if they get within 10 runs, you know, they're going to get there. And it wasn't a lot of, you know, it wasn't a big partnership to create if they got themselves in. So
And
it was a big moment.
I was going to say, and really in that match in particular, India have been totally reliant on Virat Kohli, hadn't they?
They had 149 in the first
149 in the
innings,
first innings. And
Well, we've been reliant on Curran in the first innings.
Curran made a 60 and a 30. I think, again, he bailed us out later in the order.
And also, as you see in one of the earlier reviews of the year that we've done, he took those 3 wickets, didn't he, on that morning at Edgbaston that were really important on the second morning when India got off to that amazing start.
Yeah,
It seemed to rather bad, didn't it? Set the tone for the series, that game, which, as you say, although England won 4-1.
It was a real ding-dong of a series.
I
you know?
felt
I
it
mean,
was.
there were 2 one-sided victories. They beat us one-sided, and we beat them in the next game one-sided. But the other 3 games could have quite easily been flipped over. They could have beaten us 3-2, you know, 3-1 or whatever. It was a really good series.
It was.
And as we're seeing, as you know, it's a Christmas review. India have just beaten Australia in Australia
By
31
runs. Well, now, isn't that a coincidence? 31 runs indeed that India have just won by the score that they lost that day in Edgbaston.
Indeed.
But a good karma there, maybe, for Virat there.
Well,
after
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
Which it must have been very difficult for him in that game at Edgbaston to have taken his team that far and have put such effort in himself and performed so well to then fall, as it were, at the final hurdle.
Well, do you think also that there was an element of, for him, he'd always been best batsman in the world, but can he do it in England?
Yeah,
can he do it when the weather's
absolutely.
overcast? Can he do it when the pitches are a bit
and
greener?
Jimmy Anderson was swinging it around corners.
He had a little bit of luck, didn't he? He was dropped a couple of times.
Yeah, he was. He was dropped on 21, I think, you know, there's another point.
In the first innings,
He
was it?
was dropped on 21 in the first innings.
Yeah.
And could have made the whole series so much different. But
Yeah, absolutely.
that's the way it goes, you know.
That is, it is thin margins, isn't it?
It is thin margins, as 31 runs is, and we were talking
Indeed.
about India and Australia last night. 31 runs. The new, elitely honest Australians. You wouldn't think, would you, that we could get through a review with Bear and Hendo together that didn't touch upon stairwells and sandpaper. Let's have a listen to this.
Once an Aussie captain was facing heavy defeat under the cloud of a stairwell affair. And he sang as he watched and waited till AB declared, "You'll come ball tampering Bancroft with me. Ball tampering Bancroft, ball tampering Bancroft. You'll come ball tampering Bancroft with me." And he sang as he watched and waited till AB declared, "You'll come ball tampering Bancroft with me."
Now, they've become more honest. They've become more sporting. They've reinvented themselves. Does that mean we love them now, Bear?
No, it doesn't. And what it means is that they've neutered themselves.
A bit like Michael Clark was saying, actually, didn't he? He came out the other day.
Indeed. And I think the problem here is, I think a lot of us. I mean, it happened at a very dark time in the year for us. We've been up all winter. We've been absolutely battered
It
by
was
the
quite
Aussies.
literally dark all the time we were
was
doing
dark all
it.
the time we were doing, and my mind was dark. I'd spent a lot of time awake overnight watching cricket and losing, and then we gone to New Zealand, and our next piece will confirm that. And then this little ray of light came through, and it just made me laugh because the Australians went. I still believe that they went totally overboard with this whole thing, banning these players for a year. But the total sort of crying Aussie thing just absolutely made me giggle, and everyone was trying to. I can't even remember. Some of the people in the press were, trying to justify this and say this, and it was all so. Hideous.
Well, it was great fun. I mean, I remember going home. I think there must have been the New Zealand game earlier that day. I got home, and pretty much the first thing I saw when I sat down on the sofa and put on the South Africa game was Cameron Bancroft with the ball. I thought, what's going on there? Surely someone's going to say something about
hand
this.
down his trousers.
Yeah, and this was just remarkable. And even at tea, and not too much had been said. And I just think I remember saying to my partner, "Oh, this is going is going to go off. And that said, I didn't expect it to go off quite to the extent that it did. And I know that a lot of Australian listeners to us were very downhearted about it, very downbeat about it. Messi Jez was deeply upset, and we thought that was.
I thought personally, I was totally overboard. And I remember sitting here, we were watching, I think Davey Warner was doing his bit, and I was like, I bet he's not going to cry. The other two have cried. He's not going to fucking cry, is he? And then David Warner's like, and then, and I was like, if I cry out loud, if Davey Warner's going to cry, what's the world coming to? I mean, it was just,
Well, it was a cumulative effect, I suppose, wasn't it? Because we'd gone back to that time when Michael Clark had said to Jimmy Anderson, get ready for a broken arm and all that. And there'd been had come out in the press. There was talk about Warner. Well, there was Warner with Bairstow, the various things that he'd said to Bairstow that we still don't quite know what. There was the punch route going back. Well, that's going back a few years. But also you had the... and you had these various things going off with Johnny Bairstow's headbutt of Cameron Bancroft in the bar in Perth as well.
Everybody wanted to be
it was almost like there was a sense of, if we're talking of karma before with Virat Kohli, there was a sense of Australian karma there. And of course, who's going to enjoy Australian bad karma more than English fans?
I always think it's a little sad that Morny Morkel took five for probably 30 or 40 that day, and everyone forgets that.
Yeah.
No one will remember that.
It's that thing.
They'll remember stairwells.
They have muted themselves. Look at them now.
Yeah, and we've got to say, what great work by Jeff Perkins who came up with that jingle. The ball tampering Bancroft. It was the anthem for the year, as far as I'm concerned.
With it within 24 hours.
Yeah, incredibly quick. So those are the wonders.
Hats off to you and happy Christmas.
Hats off. If I had a hat, I'd take it off to you. Absolutely. Brilliant.
Well, interestingly, there seems to be a theme. There's a bit of a comedy or either the darker or more amusing side of cricket seems to be common to both of you. And you actually picked as your last highlight the same occasion. And it happened to be the day that Craig Overton top scored for England, scoring 60% of the team's runs. Who wants to take that one and talk a little bit about it?
Well, I mean, it was kind of hilarious, but you felt like a burden had been lifted after Australia, and we went straight into the New Zealand tests. And we didn't go straight into them. We had some one days or whatever beforehand. But once we got into them, the very notion that we were getting up after seeing England lose 4-0 in Australia, and then seeing England collapse before lunch in no more than 20 overs.
It was
20 overs, 58 runs. And at one point, I think we were 27 for 9.
Yeah.
It was. I found it hilarious because it was a kind of hysteria. In the sense that if Australia had done that to us, I'd have been distraught, and I probably wouldn't have recovered by now. But because it was New Zealand, everyone kind of likes New Zealand, don't they? Certainly since the McCullum years, you kind of just enjoyed the spectacle of it in a way.
There was that. I mean, I really couldn't give a shit. There was New Zealand. Good luck to them. It was after a really long winter. We've been spanked by the Aussies. It was really depressing. And the thing that I always remember about this, and the dark thing about it, is that we come in here and we thought, oh God, we've got 2 tests to go, and then it's the end. We've done however many days we did over winter. It was terribly stressful. And we got here. England were bowled out 58 before lunch on the first day, and you thought this test is going to be over in 3 days. Sweet, we're going to 2 days sleep. And then we sat here for the next 2 days. And the next day, I think we had about 10 overs play, and we had to sit here till about 6:30 in the morning, because you had to sit here till the day was over to say, right, we're going to go home. There's no more cricket. And then the day after that, I think the entire day was rained off. They didn't get a single ball, and we sat here. I'm not even sure we went on air. I think we tweeted out that we'll be on air if there's any chance of any play. And then about 5:30, 6:30 again in the morning, they called it off. So we just sat here the whole night. Everyone sort of passing out and going, and it was coming towards the end of the winter. It was just dark days. But yeah,
it was almost like it was like you could see the light at the end of the tunnel, but that test match ripped it from your sight for a little while.
If it had been the second test match, it had kind of been passable, because you're going, okay, well, after this, it doesn't really matter. But you knew there was this one, and then there was the next one afterwards, and we were about to get slaughtered in a 2-match test series. And then it turns out that obviously the Kiwis did that amazing last day stand and denied us victory in the second to get a series. That was a good test match.
To be fair, they've had an extremely good year. They seem to do a lot of their cricket under the radar, but they've played 2-1-2 in terms of test series this year, including winning in the UAE against Pakistan. So they are a good team.
Some of their parts, and they've got Kane Williams, and he's
and it just proves
top quality batsman.
It's a quality of a guerrilla commentator to be able to laugh at themselves and
absolutely
and our national team.
You have to take
if it takes that. Indeed. Well, let's have a little listen to how some of that panned out.
How does he speak, or play the horn, or clean his teeth, or even yawn? How does he shout? How does he call? Trent Bart's mouth is really small.
It's really small, but he's got a wicket with it. Well, with his arm, let's put it that way. As a ball swinging away from Alistair Cook, brings him forward, draws him into the shot, finds the edge. It goes to second slip, and England lose their first wicket. They're 6 for 1.
Oh, that's a full delivery that's yorked Moeen Ali, and that is England 23 for 8. Another duck in the scoreboard.
That's just
And this is, well, by Chris' reaction, beyond hilarious now.
Well, we were thinking at that point, weren't we, that this could be England's lowest score, because I think their lowest score before was 25.
I think it was 25.
Yeah.
And,
Something like that, yeah.
that's precisely what they would have got had Craig Overton not managed 33 out of
Well,
somewhere.
they said Craig Overton, an absolute class act, isn't he? Wasn't used much during the summer after that, which is a bit harsh, isn't it? The man who stood up and to be counted in that test, and yet he wasn't rewarded further down the line.
No, it's true.
It was extraordinary. Trent Boult, for the record, of course, took 6 for 32. And Tim Southey, a modest 4 for 25.
Just a 4 for
he would have gone
25.
home very disappointed, I suspect, with his day's work.
Well, I didn't get a fifer, did he? I mean, where at least Trent did, so he can say, look in the list of fifers and tenfers in matches. And
So a sort of a slightly serious question for you both. And I mean, were England just battered, bruised, and generally brought down by the mauling that they had in Australia, or were they just utterly unprepared? And was it a bit of a shambles in preparation that kind of led to that horror story?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I think they were a bit battered. Cricket is, it's a very strange sport, and the fact that you have to be away from home for such long periods of time, I don't care who you are and what you do, even you're young or whatever, actually living out of hotels and suitcases for that long is mentally wearing, and I think a tour of that length is maybe a little bit too far. I mean, some of them got to come home, and they're the ones who probably got D-Mob happy. I mean, the Broads and Andersons and Cook got to come home after the mauling in Australia. They had a couple of months at home. It was winter. They probably got pissed a lot and thought, fuck it, And then, shit, I've got to be on a plane back to New Zealand. I've got to play a couple of tests now.
Well, I don't really understand that. I mean, I find that even more difficult to take on board, that they fly 10,000 miles home, then they've got to fly out again even further beyond Australia to New Zealand. I don't know how these guys do it in terms of the travel.
They put the extra money in and go first class, dude, man.
Well, even so, 24 or 28 hours is a bloody long time in a tube, isn't it?
And they sleep on a bed, man.
Well, maybe.
Did they ever spare a thought for the guys who have to stay up, and ladies who stay up all night to commentate on them? I'll bet they don't.
They don't care, do they? They don't
I'll bet they don't.
But I think you're absolutely right. I think there was an element of... I think if you come off an Ashes series and you've been absolutely slaughtered, that was the highlight of the winter, it's going to be very difficult to get yourself back up for a 2-test series, I think. So I think that's possibly
especially when
the
you
reason.
come home as well.
But that said, you don't expect them to be bowled out for 58.
No,
so,
you don't.
And
they did. I mean, the other thing is they did all right, and then the second test they had a chance to win it, but the wicket got dead, and there was a good partnership that went on most of the day, and New Zealand got a quality draw at the end of it. It was a good test,
Yeah, absolutely.
And the beauty of it was we were there to bring every single crazy ball of it,
absolutely,
as we have been for so many matches this year.
Well, 130 days, over 130 days.
Over 130 days.
And nights. And dawns and dusks. Many dawns and dusks.
And next year, of course, we've got the West Indies World Cup, Ashes again.
Ooh. Oh, so much.
It's
so much to look forward to.
There is a lot to look forward to. There is, and we will bring it to you wherever it is. So that just coming up next will be Nakal Pande's review in his own unique way of 2018. But from the three of us, we would like to wish you all a magnificent and wonderful Chris Wokes.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
When Broad and Bresnan have a rest, it's Chris Wokes Day, it's Chris Wokes Day. If their names are not on the list, it's Chris Wokes Day in the morning.
2018, a year in which so many teams made progress on the field, despite and not because of those purporting to run the game. The BCCI were either asleep at the wheel or trying to ram each other off the road. Cricket Australia were trying to sandpaper over the cracks of a culture gone utterly toxic. The ECB were tying themselves in knots over whatever the 100 is, or was when I pressed record, and the ICC, while they expanded T20 internationals to include every side in the world, men's and women's,
condemned the next two 50-over World Cups to be 10-team closed shops. But as Jeff Goldblum almost said, cricket finds a way. Bangladesh won their first ever Women's Asia Cup. In the Men's World Cup qualifier, everyone beat everyone. Literally. Hong Kong finished last in that World Cup qualifier, was stripped of their ODI status as a result, but a few months later qualified for the main draw of the Asia Cup, and in the first game came within a few boundaries of beating eventual champions India. The most viscerally thrilling moment of the year came in Edinburgh, where a Callum MacLeod masterpiece and a nerve-jangling last over from Sufyan Sharif saw Scotland beat the greatest white ball team that England have ever assembled. The first ever standalone Women's World T20 took place just recently in the West Indies. India made their first ever semi-final, having the year before reached their first ever 50-over World Cup final, and had their own coach, captain, star player row, who said women's cricket wasn't mainstream. And Australia won playing hard cricket without ever resorting to dickheadish behaviour. Who knew? Virat Kohli rose to the top of the world even as India squandered opportunities to win series in both South Africa and England. We were thrilled by Sam Curran as England finally realised that having a lot of all-rounders is a good thing. Mohammad Abbas redefined seam bowling for the modern and even fairly ancient age. And Afghanistan and, of course, Ireland played their first ever men's test matches, the latter under the watchful eyes of guerrilla cricket and that glorious Malahide May time. Thank you to everyone who's been part of the guerrilla cricket journey this year, whether on air or off, whether listening, whether tweeting, or watching us on Facebook Live. Huge thanks. We couldn't have done any of this without you. It's been a pleasure having you all along for the ride, and join us again for 2019.
Guerrilla cricket.
Revolutionary cricket commentary.